What was a sibling moment you have never forgotten? As the youngest sibling by a span of at least 5 years, I was used to my siblings picking on me. To get revenge required guerrilla tactics, so one year, I took a handful of jelly beans, and one by one inserted them up my ass and extracted them. I then gave them to my siblings for a delicious treat. What the fuck? When I got to grade 11, the end of high school in my province, my English teacher was having us prepare for final exams by reading an example of other work that got well graded by the provincial government years earlier. So she hands out this paper, and the topic was, the most pivotal moment of my life. Okay, no biggie, everyone in the class is pretty chill about spending an hour reading about some kid dramatizing a vaguely important thing, and getting an A on this paper, whatever, except, we start reading it, and it's about the birth of a baby sister. It's this beautiful, heartbreaking personal essay about a baby girl born on June 19th, while the older sister, the author of the essay, was napping at her grandparents' house. Wait a minute. It was the story of my birth. I cried later at home, and the teacher let me take it home to make photocopies. By random coincidence, 5 years apart in the schooling system, from a different high school, my sister had written an A-grade paper about my birth being the most pivotal moment of her life. There were some post-exam questions she had to answer, and one of them mentioned being sad that my sister could never read this essay and know how important she is to me. Waterworks everywhere. Shit. Not even going to blame the damn onions. When I was 9 and my sister was 4, my dad threw his back out and had to take us with him to the chiropractor while mom was at work. He told us in no uncertain terms that our butts were not to leave our seats. So, like good little children, we settled in with some highlights and a few toys he'd brought from home. About 45 minutes later, I heard him thank the chiropractor and head back down the hall to the waiting room. I stood up to get my coat, and my sister, who had clearly not heard him, jumped onto her chair, screamed, "Dad said not to get up," and fucking knocked me to the ground with a flying tackle. I honestly don't think I've ever laughed so hard in my life, before or since. My muscles felt like jelly. I couldn't even begin to push her off of me. Over 20 years later, and it's still one of my favorite childhood memories. No idea why, it's just hilarious. Wow. From back when highlights were a thing, and kids actually listened to their parents. Cute story. I like that story, and I have many great memories of my little brother too. He is 5 years younger than me, and even when he was in his teen years he always looked up to me and told his friends how cool his older sister is. One afternoon when I was probably around 17-18 and had my own car, I ended up behind the school bus that my brother was on. He looked out the back window and saw it was me, and I saw him excitedly motion to his buddies, and mouth the words that his sister was behind the bus. Instead of being too cool or doing obnoxious gestures, they all waved and tried to do all kinds of things to make me laugh. A simple memory, but one I love. I remember looking up to my brothers all so much. You will never quite understand how much of a hero you are as an older sibling. You're our safety net in every way. My brothers would fight for me at school, and whenever my mother would flip out they'd defend me to her too. I just realized what a shitty older sister I am. When I forgot to knock, I walked in on my sister attempting to pee like a man. That image to this day is burned into the back of my mind, and whenever she tries to embarrass me with stories she's got on me, I can always retreat to that time and she immediately shuts up. A while back, me and my girlfriend had just got done doing it. There was a puddle of filthy sex juice left on my bed. My brother came in and sat down on the bed right next to the wet spot. He noticed it, got down and smelled it. He kept saying, "What the hell is this? Why is the bed wet, etc." I told him something must have spilled. The worst part was when he touched it then smelled his finger. I almost told him he was smelling his nieces and nephews, but I didn't. Probably one of the funniest times of my life. Long story short, I had sex. Brother sat in my aftermath, touched it and smelled his finger. Oh my god, that is horrible. I try to not let anyone in my room after I've had sex. My brother was in a car wreck when he was 15. I was at home alone with no idea where anyone was. This was back in '86. Eventually a neighbor came over to tell me to go to the hospital. I get to the ER and a bunch of his friends and our church's minister are all there and it is looking pretty grim. Finally, the ER doc comes out and says he's relatively stable, but needs to get into surgery pretty quick. They're preparing the operation. I ask if I can see him. The doctor says I can, and that he's barely conscious, but asking for me. I go in and it's worse than I was thinking. They'd started to get him cleaned up some, but there's still random blood on him and tubes coming out of him in odd places. He's hooked up to every machine they've got in there. He finally opens his eyes and is looking right at me. I lean down and quietly say to him, "So, were you wearing clean underwear?" He just stares at me for a bit and cracks a bit of a smile and starts to laugh a little. Of course, with all the tubes and everything in him, laughing is a bad idea and he starts choking, and all the machines go nuts. A bunch of nurses and doctors come rushing in, and I'm thrown out of there. He says he doesn't remember leaving school, getting in the car, the crash or anything until he woke up well after the surgery, except that he remembers me asking about his underwear. Whoa, a car wreck is the reason my brother is handicapped. Cherish that you have him. We used to sleep in the same room and the way our beds were laid out like a river's L with my feet facing his head. One night I had really bad smelly gas that not even I could stand, so I wrapped myself with a blanket and let every fart I had in my system go. It was so hot under that blanket that I was sweating a lot. I passed gas for like 5 minutes and then I opened a little hole and all the gas shot out from there, right to my brother's face. It took less than a second for him to start wheezing and coughing. It was so bad we had to evacuate our room. I dubbed it the Dutch cannon and would threaten him with it every time he was being a cunt bubble. When I was about 9, me and my brother were having an argument about nothing that I can remember. My mom walked in and sat down with us, so we immediately stopped. Trying to get under my skin one last time, he said to me, "Will you go pour me a glass of water?" I told him no way because I was still upset about fighting, but my mom made me get up and go pour him some water. So I got up, went to the fridge, opened the ice box, and got each piece of ice and rubbed them under my ball sack, and continued to pour in the water afterwards, returning with a smile, and "Here you go." I guess I've always been the asshole older brother. When I was younger, my brother, who was only 3 years younger than I was, would take showers together. Reason being we had to save water because we used to live in the outskirts of Mexico. Getting water meant taking a bucket, walking about 300 yards, acquire the water, and then come back. I must have been around 8 when I got really mad at him and took a shit, just out of anger, for no reason. Why, I don't even know. Anyway, the turd kind of floated on the water, and he thought it was a submarine, and he pretty much played with my turd until my mom came in. She scolded him. He started crying and I laughed my ass off. He's a whole lot bigger than me now, but I love to bring it up. When I was in my teens, my brother forgot to clear the browser history after looking at porn on the family computer and blamed it on me. I wound up being banned from the computer for an entire year except for school work. To get back at him, I told him to quit fapping with lotion, that ketchup was best. It took a few days, but I finally saw him sneaking back to his room with a bottle of ketchup he stole from the refrigerator. When he closed his door, I went and peeked under until he got started. Then I went and told Mom that he needed her help with homework really quickly. She barged in his room and started screaming, thought he injured himself somehow, realized it was ketchup and then started screaming at him for that. Long story short, I got my brother to fap with ketchup, and got Mum to catch him going at it. With that out of the way, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon if you want more content to keep appearing in your subscription box. Thanks for watching, and until next time.